Hey guys, this is Miss Arlequin, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the introductions for our Unit 3 performance-based task. Alright, so we have talked many times about the structure of an essay. We know that every essay is made up of three main components. You always have your introductory paragraph, you have your body paragraphs, and then you have your conclusion. Now, with our introduction, which we're going to be focusing on today, we also know that there are three main parts of that paragraph. Introductions always start with an engaging lead or a hook sentence or sentences. And then once you have captured your reader's interest, which is the point of a lead or a hook, then you're going to slowly start to become more specific. And you do that by writing some sentences where you connect the topics that you introduced in your lead to the very specific topic that you're going to mention in your thesis statement. So this really should involve doing things like introducing who the authors are, the names of the text, what they're about. And then finally you get down to your thesis statement, which is the argument of your essay. It is your main point, what you're going to be proving in the body paragraphs. And since we are writing our essays based on a specific assignment, your thesis should always be based on the task. You should take that task prompt and use it to write your thesis. So that's what we're going to start off with. When we look at the assignment, the performance-based task prompt, we see that we're being asked to compare and contrast two writers' perspectives on democracy and to also analyze the strategies that they use to convey their perspectives. So based on this task, what elements do we have to include in our thesis statement? What information does our thesis statement have to state to our readers? All right, so overall, I would say that you should mention in your thesis statement a comparison and the contrast. So your reader, when they read their thesis statement, should know this is what the two texts and the two authors have in common, and this is where they differ. This is the contrast. It should mention the author's perspectives, specifically their perspectives on democracy, since that is the specific topic the task is asking you to write about. And it's also telling you to talk about strategies. So your thesis statement should mention some kind of use of strategies. Now, this is a lot to go into a thesis statement. So I would say that the strategy use, if you're not going to directly mention it in the thesis, it should be somewhere in your introduction. As your reader, by the time I get to the end of your intro paragraph, I should know that this is an essay that is going to talk about literary techniques. It's not just talking about perspective. It's talking about the way techniques are used to develop the perspective. All right, so let's look at a sample introduction. The accepted definition of democracy is government by the people. But how would you feel if half the people in the U.S. had freedom and half did not, and you were in the half without? Democracy can mean different things to different people. Both Reginald Rose, the author of 12 Angry Men, and Langston Hughes, the author of Democracy, see equality as essential for democracy. However, Rose's perspective is from a full participant of democracy, while Hughes's perspective is from the outside looking in. All right, so here in this sample intro, you see that all of the parts of an introduction are being included. You've got your hook sentences here, and in this case, as the hook, the student has decided that they were going to just define democracy, which is actually a really good strategy. Obviously, your reader needs to know what democracy is in order to fully understand the author's perspectives on what it means to live in a democracy. So they're giving them the background information that they need. And they also combine that, not only a definition, but they also asked a question, which again is a really great hook strategy because it's asking your reader to participate in some thinking, to connect to the topic. So always keep in mind that your hook doesn't just have to be one type of strategy. You can combine different hooks together. You could do a question and a quote. You could do a definition and a question. The sentence in green is then the connecting sentence. So I'm just generally introducing here that there are different perspectives on democracy, and then the next sentence gives you two specific people's perspectives. So it's slowly leading into the specific. So then you've got your thesis statement, which, because there is so much to talk about in this task, it is a two-sentence thesis statement. You've got the comparison sentences in blue, And then you have the contrast sentences here in red. The only thing that keeps this introduction from being as strong as it could be is that there is no mention of techniques here. And so if I was going to revise this introduction, I would at some point mention that both authors use literary techniques. So I would say maybe something like, see, equality is essential for democracy. Maybe we can add a last sentence where we say both authors develop these perspectives through the use of literary techniques. That would actually be a really great way to squeeze that in. And yes, it becomes a 3-sentence thesis statement, but that is appropriate for this task. All right, so for your introduction, you want to make sure, once again, that you're including all 3 components. You want to make sure that you have your engaging lead, connecting sentences, and your thesis. In your engaging lead, I highly recommend you discuss either democracy or equality, since those are the 2 main focuses of the text. That you, in your connecting sentences, state the name of the text, the author's name, and give a very short 1-sentence summary of what the text is about. You have to do that twice for this because this is an essay about 2 authors and 2 texts. So you're going to have something about Reginald Rose and 12 Angry Men, and then something about Sarah Holbrook and her poem Democracy. And then you have a choice of 2 different possible thesis statements. You can use this thesis statement frame, where you say both Rose and Holbrook view, see, believe. Choose one of the verbs. What is it that they view? What is their viewpoint on democracy? And then you have the contrast. However, Rose's perspective is, what's something different about the way he views life in a democracy? And then what's something different about the way Sarah Holbrook views it? And again, if you choose this thesis statement, you have to mention literary techniques, either in the connecting sentences or, like what we just said in the previous slide, you're going to want to add it here. So something like, both authors use various techniques to develop these perspectives. And then so that could take care of that. Or you could do it this last way. Both Rose and Holbrook use various literary techniques to convey their viewpoint that. And you're going to finish this blank with how they feel about democracy. What is their perspective? It's got to be something the same. They both think democracy is a positive experience, or they both think that people need to do this when they're in a democracy, something they have in common. And then the contrast. However, Rose's perspective is, what is his differing opinion versus what Holbrook's differing opinion is. So, however, Rose's perspective is blank, while Rose's perspective is blank, while Holbrook's perspective is blank. And you got to fill that in. All right, so it's time to write our own introductions. Make sure you're in your PS102 Google Drive account. You've got your document open. Use the outline and make sure that your introduction is done before tomorrow's class.